A rookie QB goes off, a journeyman QB has the comeback of a lifetime, and an MVP QB apologizes to fantasy owners. It was quite a doozy in fantasy football, but Jason, that's how it always is. That's why we have the Fantasy GOAT, and the Fantasy GOAT starts right now.
This is the Fantasy GOAT, sponsored by Casablanca Resort and Casino, like Vegas used to be.
Welcome, I'm Mike Davis. This is Jason Feinberg. Welcome to the Fantasy GOAT. Jason, what a week. C.J. Stroud, what can you say about this rookie QB?
I was watching all the games, as I always do, at a sports book, and the announcer every time was saying, C.J. Stroud, 340 yards. C.J. Stroud, 380 yards, 3 times. I mean, it kept growing and growing. The guy was unstoppable.
It's incredible. And let's not even wait, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right into it, kids. Hole-in-one player of the week, sponsored by Casablanca Resort and Casino. It's, of course, C.J. Stroud, and this guy went off for a rookie debut, Jason. We know, guys, your favorite dude of all time, Peyton Manning, it's hard to be a rookie QB. This guy went off, and he broke the rookie passing record with 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, 41.8 fantasy points. He's now QB7 through 9 weeks and on pace to throw for 4,823 yards. I mean, Jason, in some leagues, you saw what number did he get up to?
So in one of my leagues, this is pretty funny. You get the bonus for 300 yards, and I think you get it for 400 too. 61 fantasy points in my original league, and I still lost. But I had some injuries. I had downs that went down, and a few others. But I did play him in another league in the 40 range and did win.
Same with me.
Yeah.
And it's
real
just
exciting to watch, too.
Remarkable. He put the league on notice, and I think we've been super impressed with him all season long. He's still got only 1 interception he has thrown. But, you know, during the draft process, it's kind of fascinating because a lot of executives were concerned about this S2 test that he took, which it's not the Wonderlic, but it's more, the Wonderlic's more about IQ, whereas the S2 is about cognitive processing in game situations. And he actually told reporters during the draft process, listen, I'm not a test taker. I play football. That's what this guy does. He plays football, and he plays football really well. And this is what I want to mention to our producer, James Edward Barrickman, the fourth. James, you're from Pittsburgh. You are a Pittsburgh fan. Now, your QB, Kenny Pickett, let's just break this down, okay? Kenny Pickett played 21 career games, Jason, 13 passing touchdowns. C.J. Stroud, a rookie, 8 career games, 14 passing touchdowns. James Edward Barrickman IV, what else can I say? What's your response?
So I think that those statistics that you mentioned are way more of an indictment on Kenny Pickett and the staff in Pittsburgh than it is a celebration of C.J. Stroud. You look at their career numbers side by side, and Stroud's very clearly been the better quarterback. He has a better quarterback rating, more touchdowns, and just 1 interception, and in 13 less games. So what that's saying is a lot of us may have been wrong about C.J. Stroud coming out of college, including myself. I mean, I helmet scouted thinking that he was just another Ohio State quarterback that wasn't going to work in the league.
Right.
So good for Houston. They may have found their franchise guy, but this is a fantasy football show, of course. So is C.J. Stroud your franchise guy for your fantasy team? And if you're in a redraft league, I'm not so sure. He exploded in week 9, but before he exploded, he was averaging just 257 yards, just over 1 touchdown, and 16 fantasy points a game. That's not great. That's not really what you're looking for as a starter, especially in a redraft league. So I'm not sold on him being a set it and forget it kind of guy quite yet.
I'm rolling with him.
Yeah, I am too, and most quarterbacks are down this season.
Yes.
So that actually, comparatively speaking, those aren't bad statistics.
And this league has been around for 104 years, and he set the rookie record for passing passing yards, 470 yards. I mean, in 104 years, it's remarkable stuff.
He's made Noah Brown looked good, right? And Tank Dell is pretty good, but still, it's helping. He's getting these bombs to him.
They got D'Amico and that whole team. They got to let him loose. Forget the running game. Just let C.J. Stroud do his thing. I love this guy. But let's continue on right now with livestock. So beyond that great QB display from C.J. Stroud, we also got to talk about Josh Dobbs in Minnesota. I mean, this guy, in the past 11 months, Jason, he's been on 5 teams, okay? As a child, he wanted to be an astronaut or a QB. 2 great options.
Right.
The QB thing works out pretty well for this guy. Jaron Hall gets concussed. Josh Dobbs doesn't even know some of the players on Minnesota's first name. He hasn't thrown a pass to anybody in Minnesota. You saw him with Garrett Bradbury, the center, on the sideline working on his cadence because nobody even has snapped a ball with Joshua Dobbs. And now he goes back and he has this comeback game in his hometown of Atlanta and stuns Atlanta. It's a remarkable display. 2 TDs, no interceptions. What did you think about that comeback performance?
I thought it was amazing because it didn't start off well at all. The first couple series, I was like, oh boy, this is not good from a fantasy or a betting perspective. But then, he just kind of, that's what a pro does, especially one with an education like he does here. He's smart, and he used it on the field. And now I'm really excited about a guy like Justin Jefferson coming back because he's got a guy that can get him the ball.
And that's the big take-home message, which I think is super smart, Jason. Guys like Justin Jefferson set to return, Addison, Hawkinson. Now I think you could really play those guys with confidence because Dobbs is stepping in to that situation where Kirk Cousins obviously, had the Achilles injury out for the season. So it's a great thing. But let's continue lastly here in livestock. Lamar Jackson, he actually gave a shout out to fantasy owners on his Instagram. This is what he posted on his story, Jason. Let me just read this real quick. Fantasy owners want to fade me right now, bruh. Sorry, y'all boys. I'll say that one more time. Fantasy owners want to fade me right now. Bruh, sorry, y'all boys. What does that mean to you, Jason?
First of all, when he says bruh, it was just a little bit quicker than saying you and me.
Gotcha.
Right, so he was talking about mentioning us. But
specifically,
he didn't say to fade him. He just said that we want to fade him.
We want to fade him.
But he's not saying, so I guess, he's not really saying don't or do.
Right. You know what? I think we're completely confused. All we know is he didn't have a touchdown pass. He didn't have an interception. He did have a fumble loss. But, it was a bad fantasy performance for him.
Right. But
Baltimore looked great. 37-3. They beat a good Seattle team. But, it's a shame when you got a guy like Lamar, you want to play him and you want him to perform well. But I do want to say one thing. As we're circling back in livestock, I did meet C.J. Stroud earlier this year. I interviewed him at a boxing match. And
I remember that.
We're going to throw up a picture. It's me, Micah Parsons, and C.J. Stroud. I wasn't floored by his demeanor, but now as I reflect back on it and this 470 rookie yard performance, that's a record breaker, he's calm, cool, collected, poised guy.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud. That's the dude right there. That might be the fantasy GOAT. Anyway, guys, coming up after a short break, we got so much more to continue and discuss and break down. We got GOAT Vision, QBs, RBs, Jason and I. We got you covered. We'll be right back after a short break.
Before we head to break, in Week 10 of 2018, which Chicago quarterback threw for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win versus Detroit? He collected 36 fantasy points and finished as the week's QB1. The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you which Chicago quarterback threw for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win versus Detroit back in Week 10 of 2018. The answer, Mitch Trubisky, who played for Chicago from 2017 to 2020.
All right, welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. Jason, let's kick off GOAT Vision QBs. Who you feeling, who you not feeling so much?
So, not that, not that he's breaking records or anything, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Aiden O'Connell does, with a couple games under his belt and a big game, that's going to be prime time against a team that they could beat with a quarterback I have on the guys I'm not fond of, but it's too easy. It's too much of low-hanging fruit to go with Zach Wilson. But Aiden O'Connell, for sure. But as far as guys I'm not looking forward, I haven't been real impressed with, I know it's going to sound weird, but Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
I was just looking at yards per attempt, and Los Angeles he's at 6.9 yards, which is much lower than most teams in about the 8-yard average.
It's weird because they're playing better as a team and an organization, but his fantasy, output isn't there.
Right?
It's a weird thing, but he's down Mike Williams. He's still got Keenan Allen, but Quentin Johnson, the rookie wideout, hasn't played up to expectations as a first-round pick. So that's a major thing. Now, here's a weird thing who I'm actually liking, Jason. So, this Buffalo team is not the same defense and team that we're accustomed to. And that's why I actually like Russell Wilson this week with Denver facing them. They actually surrendered Buffalo 20 points the last 3 weeks to opposing QBs. 2 of those QBs were Mac Jones and actually Baker Mayfield. So Russ, I actually like him to have a nice game coming off a bye, and they can also be down by a lot, and it could be a nice output for him in terms of fantasy production. So I'm liking Russ this week.
He's statistically sneaky, actually.
Yes.
He's been pretty good for fantasy.
So I kind of like that. And the guy I'm not feeling actually here, just like, how Buffalo has kind of changed. Well, Brock Purdy, that whole situation has changed from the beginning of the season to now as well. And he's going up against Jacksonville, who, a tough team. They have 84 QB pressures, which is 7th in the league right now. Plus, he might be missing Debo and Trent Williams, the great maybe future Hall of Fame left tackle. So I don't love that. And, I just think it could be a tough week for him because this Jacksonville team is strong.
And I'm starting to think that Debo is his security blanket because he has not done well in the 3 games that Debo hasn't played.
Yeah.
And maybe that was kind of his check down guy that he needed. Now he's forced to throw it to Ayuk and guys like that.
Right. And even Ayuk had a better, was having a better season when Debo was on the field as well.
Yeah.
So, that's a weird thing there. But let's transition now to running back. So here's the big thing I want to point out. I'm actually really loving Jonathan Taylor right now as we're gearing up for the fantasy playoffs. I mean, the separation between Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, it's no longer a thing. This gap has become a big deal. And let's just look at what happened last week. He outsnapped Moss 22-7. So Zach Moss, he was playing well, but not so much. Last week, 7 carries, 26 yards, and Taylor had, those nice 18 carries, 47 yards, and a receiving touchdown. So I'm big on Taylor, and I think against New England, he'll have a nice week. But real quickly, Jason, the guy I'm not feeling, listen, Josh Jacobs, he had a great week last week. 26 carries, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he played the one New York team that you want to face, and this week he's playing the other New York team that you don't want to face defensively. So I'm not big on Jacobs this week. How about you?
I just kind of by default and attrition, I like Alexander Madison in Minnesota because now that Akers is out for the season, he's back to being the guy, and he is starting to get his mid-season flow anyway. So I'm excited to see how he does. And can we just go with the whole Houston backfield? Really, and you were saying earlier, just let
throw the ball.
C.J. Stroud, do your thing. Just throw it because they don't have any answers for their backfield.
And I feel like week in, week out, I keep seeing this replay of them at the goal line and a Houston running back trying to get into the end zone, and it just doesn't happen. So he's so prolific in the red zone as a rookie, CJ. Just let him pass.
Also, something to think about, maybe trying to sell or trade Saquon right now, because right now he's the only game in town in New York, and they're going to be lining up that line. Stopping him.
I have him in a lot of leagues. It's been a devastating year with that. But guys, coming up after a short break, we got wide receivers, we got tight ends. There's always a lot to talk about there. Jason, I'm curious to hear who you're loving and who you're hating. We got that after a short break.
Before we take a break, in Week 10 of 2007, which Pittsburgh tight end had 5 receptions, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown in a win versus Cleveland? He tallied 15.6 fantasy points and finished as the week's tight end 1. The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you which Pittsburgh tight end had 5 receptions, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown in a win versus Cleveland. The answer, Heath Miller, who played for Pittsburgh from 2005 to 2015.
Welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. All right, Jason, let's kick off GOAT Vision wide receiver. So my dude, Nathaniel Tank Dell. I'm big on Stroud. That means I'm big on Tank Dell. Stroud even asked the GM and the executives of Houston to go draft this guy in the third round. So he loves him. 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards, 114 yards. You got to love that output. The guy I don't like, Amari Cooper. I just don't like this matchup for him against a tough Baltimore D. They haven't even let a touchdown through the air in the past 4 weeks. So
it's more of a matchup then.
Yes, yeah. I don't like that. What about you?
I hear you. Deontay Johnson with Pittsburgh. He is hitting his stride. He is always open, and Pickett seems to love him again now that he's back from injury. I also have Noah Brown there, which is another guy CJ throws to. And as far as also Pittsburgh, what happened to George Pickens?
Yeah.
You know, he's like Gabe Davis. It's a hit or miss. That's it, nothing in between.
He always draws me in. There's something sexy about George Pickens. I don't know what it is. But anyway, let's move on to tight ends. All right, so Cade Otton. I mean, what a great name, first of all. If Lynn and Stephen Davis just named me Cade Otton. Davis, that would have been great. Yeah. But last year, as a rookie tight end, he actually led all rookie tight ends in receptions and in targets. So that's pretty interesting. But he's on the field 90% of the snaps with Tampa Bay. So I kind of like him. He had a great showing. The guy I'm not feeling, though, David Njoku. And it's really, again, a matchup thing. Baltimore is tough against tight ends, and I'm not feeling him this week. What about you?
Yeah, in Atlanta, since Arthur Smith just plays all the wrong people.
Yeah.
Jonnu Smith is going nowhere, so go ahead and keep playing him. And you know what? I'm done with Darren Waller. I'm cutting him.
Yes,
I'm cutting him.
IR. It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I was big on him.
Yeah.
Darren Waller. It hurts our heart for fantasy owners. Guys, coming up after a short break, we got Dr. Nithin Natwa. We're breaking down critical injuries you need to know. That's next. Speaking of S2 tests, this is a guy, Dr. Nithin Natwa, I'm sure he would have killed the S2 test. He probably is on par with Joshua Dobbs in terms of that, astronaut stuff. Dr. Nithin Natwa joins us right now, sports physician. Doctor, let's start here. We need to know what's going on injury-wise. Let's start off with David Montgomery, the running back in Detroit.
David Montgomery, he had a rib cartilage injury, which basically is a little bit hard to treat because the cartilage doesn't get great blood supply. So that's why it does take a couple weeks for them to recover fully from, especially for a running back who takes a ton of hits to that chest area. Once they are recovered, though, there is no real re-injury risk. So I'm really confident that he's going to come back just as strong as before.
All right, Doc, the number 1 pick in most drafts, Justin Jefferson. We all are chomping at the bit to know when he's coming back. What are your thoughts?
I've always thought that Jefferson is going to come back. A hamstring injury is rarely something that would be an injury that would hold a player out for the entire season, regardless of what the team's goals are season-wise. I do think that he had a more severe grade 1 strain, so I don't think he's going to come back right at this deadline when the IR period ends.
And lastly, Kyler Murray, of course, a very talented QB, former number 1 pick, but torn meniscus and ACL in that right knee. What does his return look like for fantasy owners?
I'm pretty optimistic on Kyler. He's a QB1, to be honest, for fantasy. He had an ACL injury, so that is going to limit his rushing upside a little bit, just like it does limit running backs pretty significantly. But the thing is that he's a quarterback, so it's not really going to impact his throwing numbers or his touchdown receiving number or touchdown numbers as well too. I'm pretty optimistic that he's going to come back very strong.
There you have it, the great Dr. Nithin Natwa. Thanks for joining us, man. We always appreciate it. Make sure you check him out at Fantasy Docs, TikTok, and Instagram. Jason, now it's time for GOATCAST.
I'm meteorologist Sam Argier here with your Week 10 weather headlines, and we are talking about some dry weather in Germany. Big change from last week when the roof had to be closed in Frankfurt. Florida warmth and a Seattle soaker. No surprise there. We're talking about some rain for the Seattle game on Sunday afternoon. 44 degrees for New England versus Indianapolis. That roof could certainly be open. We are looking at dry weather in Frankfurt. And as far as rain around the U.S., looking at some showers around the south, but the 2 games in the morning on Sunday are in Florida. Just an isolated shower or 2, and very warm in Tampa at 87. Most of the rain south of areas like Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Baltimore, where games will be played on Sunday morning. Only outdoor afternoon game on Sunday will be in Seattle, where rain is in the forecast, so a slippery ball. That run game may be utilized a little bit more in Seattle on Sunday afternoon. Then the Monday night game in Buffalo, it'll be cool with low 40s. Also, wind will play a part for kickers with wind between 10 and 20 miles per hour. Just the chance of a few isolated showers in Buffalo. Jason and Mike, that's the weather wrap for Week 10.
All right, Jason, next up. I wish I didn't even have to be here for this portion of the show. It's getting ugly. We got GOAT lineup. Can I just leave? Am I allowed to?
No, it's part of the contract. You stay and you're get those pancakes ready because that's part of the bet.
I'm getting hungry. We'll see you right after short break. Jason, I don't even want to show my face this block for GOAT lineup. I mean, we all know rule book. This is where you can't use the same player twice. You and me go head to head. Jason, I'm dead inside. I am dead inside. It's 3-6, 6-3.
Yeah, you were up, I think, 2-0, and then I went on this mad run. You won one more in there, I think, and then it's been. I think the scary lineup on Halloween really got to you with Trey McBride of Chucky.
And
I think, and then
Damian
it's been going on,
Pierce.
and Damian Pierce. So this time I'm taking some dart throws because I have a big lead.
But before we do that,
Yeah.
I mean, 3 Ds for everybody at home, and I'm just going to slump in my chair right now.
Yeah.
Dreadful, disgusting, disappointing, dead, all the Ds. I scored 27.68 points.
How is that possible?
What did you score, over 60?
Mine over 60 easily. Yeah.
I'm going to have to be locked in a diner eating pancakes, kids.
I'm trying to tank for pancake, but it's your bet. So, I'm gonna do the best I can to get you back into this. But I was beating you with guys like Lake Carr, who's just middle of the road, and Komet had a good game.
I'm not even going to mention who I played.
Yeah.
This is who I'm playing this week because I want to drink this goat milk. Dak Prescott, Bijan Robinson, Arthur Smith, please, from the heavens above, do use your first round pick, please. Chris Olave and K. Dotton, my dude.
See, now this should be a lineup that should beat this lineup.
Okay.
So I am gonna go with Josh Dobbs. Might as well, he's on fire right now. I'm going with Tyler Algier because I don't think that they're gonna play Bijan, Deontay Johnson, and Gerald Everett's back. He looked good.
Joel Everett. We'll see what happens next week on the Fantasy Goat.